Hi, I'm Arlene McIntyre, Creative Director at Ventura Design, and you're listening to Shut the Front Door, a light-hearted podcast that will bring you through the front door and into the homes of influential and interesting people. Home for me is one of the most important things in my life. My career has fortunately given me the opportunity to work closely with people and to help them create a home they will cherish forever. Keith Barry is the world's leading TV hypnotist, mentalist, and brain hacker. Having worked globally for many years, his mind-blowing skills have been showcased in over 40 international TV shows. His ITV smash hit series, You're Back in the Room, was such an overwhelming success that it went on to feature in Australian and US versions. Keith also works as a mind coach and has clients ranging from world-class athletes, business people, influencers, and actors. The second series of the Keith Barry Experience is due to air in September this year, and I can't wait to see it. Married to Mairead and father to Breanna and Braden, it's my great pleasure to introduce Keith Barry. Hi Keith, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
How are you coping during the lockdown?
Yeah, look, I suppose I'm just the type of person who's had actually quite a lot of tragedy in the past and a lot of difficult situations. And I suppose I've learned to be resilient from that. So for me, I just kind of pivoted quickly with my business and started to do a lot more remotely and online, and then just making the best of it with Mairead and the kids, So overall, pretty good and actually crazy busy,
Yeah, I know. I'm actually finding that with a lot of people I'm speaking to at the moment. They're just finding new ways, of just working things out and working from home and, team meetings, Zoom meetings, FaceTime, it's all virtual at the moment. What are your views on that?
Yeah, well, I suppose, we all had to learn those platforms pretty quickly simply because I suppose my view is this might be, I suppose, unpopular or, it could be wrong, but I'm not sure that any live performances are going to happen this year. Like me, myself, I've got two that we're currently rescheduling off the back of my tour that I was at the end of, my Insanity tour. So I still have Waterford and Cork left to do. And of course, like everybody, I'm hoping to do those. But ultimately, we've got to wait and see how the year plans out. So for me, yeah, I mean, like you mentioned there at the top end, I am a performance coach and a mind coach, and I've done that for many years now. My skill set, my background, besides being a magician and entertainer and mentalist, is I'm also a hypnotherapist and an NLP practitioner. So I use these techniques to help people with their mindset to achieve peak performance. So I'm doing a lot of that now through, FaceTime and Zoom. I'm also doing Zoom live performances now as well. So actual shows that I can perform for people. Yeah, and I had to figure out material like that would work through that platform. And I suppose it is about just thinking differently about our businesses, being as creative as we can. Entertainment, because I am an entertainer also, obviously, it was the first thing to be wiped off the face of the planet. I don't think too many people probably realize that, but it was the very first thing to go. And it'll definitely be the last to come back, is my point. So, as the world opens back up, we have to prepare ourselves for whatever new reality that we're faced with. So for me right now, it's about being creative, being resilient, and then also trying to spend that extra bit of time with the family,
Exactly. And I'd imagine a lot of your clients that would be coming to you for, I suppose, from the point of view of, gaining confidence during this period. Are you busy with many calls and many clients calling you now for coaching lessons on how to cope during this difficult time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it doesn't really matter whether you're a sports athlete, a business person, or just a house parent. I think ultimately everybody is suffering from a certain level of anxiety. I think it's all about the unknown that's really creeping in on people. Obviously, people are hurting money wise. And yeah, absolutely. Like my clients are no different than anybody else's, that they have these worries as well as the other things that are going on in their lives. I mean, I made a strategic decision a couple of years ago now to only really deal with athletes, influencers, and then also business people. And, I do think, though, aside from those, there's going to be a massive mental health issue at the end of all of this. And, I do hope, and in the background, that our government are getting ready for that, because I just think there's going to be so much obviously anxiety and depression, but long term, I think with this stuff, even down to the scale of the way we're all obsessed now about washing our hands and washing the Amazon products that are coming in the door and putting the packages down for 3 days. I don't know how sustainable that is in the long term. And,
Yeah.
we've got to, I suppose, figure out other ways and strategies around that. And also with our mindset to not allow it all to creep in all the time and get at us. Like I made a conscious decision a few weeks ago now to not be looking at the news all day long. I made a conscious decision to spend about 15 minutes of my day, educating myself on where we're at with the coronavirus and where the world is at with regards to other things that are going on in the world. But that's it. I limit myself to 15 minutes a day, and then I don't look at it at all outside of that. And I think that's been really good for me, not to be obsessing over Twitter and Instagram and all these different platforms, and then the news as well, the real media outlets for the real news. And it's been great just to do that, to be structured in such a way that I'm not listening to the news all the time.
That's so true. There's a lot of scaremongering going on social media. And, there's so many different conspiracy theories flying around as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've been especially following those.
Yeah, well, weirdly enough, since I've been very young, I've been really interested in conspiracy theories. And it doesn't help that just, I suppose it's a couple of weeks ago now, that the US government released footage of some of their jet pilots who came across a couple of UFOs not that long ago, actually, in kind of, I can't remember the years, but it was probably 2013, 2015. You can Google it. And they came out and said, yeah, there's UFOs, there's the footage, and the conspiracy theorists potentially could be right. They haven't commented on it more than that. So I don't actually think that stuff helps, though, because I've been obsessing over everything from the Loch Ness monster right through to the Bigfoot and everything since a kid. So I suppose we're just in an evolved version of that now that we have these social media platforms. And the problem is, yes, it's great that everybody can have a voice, but we do know that there's so many conspiracy theories out there, and you got crazy Donald Trump, and he's screaming fake news. But weirdly enough, to a certain extent, he's right. There's so much fake news out there. It is very difficult now to see the wool from the trees. Mm-hmm. You can't figure out what is real, what's not real. But again, I don't think in the general populace, I don't think it helps to be obsessed with those conspiracy theories from the perspective of, how did the virus get here? How did it not get here? What's going to cure it? What's not going to cure it? And I think that can creep under people's skin and create more problems than solutions, and I think we have to leave it, whether we like it or not, we have to leave it to the powers that be to decide whether this, for example, the coronavirus, whether it was made in a lab in Wuhan or whether it was in the wet markets. But ultimately, it doesn't really, in my opinion, it doesn't really matter because it's here now. And, we can play the blame game, and, certain governments like the US government is threatening all kinds of stuff against China. But really, like, at the end of the day, is that going to help me or you in our houses in Dublin or Mullingar, where we're locked down with the coronavirus? So, that's the way I'd be thinking about it. Is I look at it from an entertainment perspective because I've been interested in conspiracy theories since I can remember. I even know the person. He's a good friend of mine, Doc Shields. He's about 82 or 83 now. He took the most famous photograph of the Loch Ness monster that was ever taken. So that's
really?
how deep my interest goes into conspiracy theories. So look, I think people just need to look at everything that they see with an intelligent, open eye, and then at the end of the day, just make your own decisions on things.
Yeah, that's true. I would love to chat with you a bit, if I can, about your own childhood memories of your home, and just to learn a little bit about that side of you.
Sure, yeah. Well, I was born and bred in Williamstown in Waterford. As a matter of fact, my address was literally Keith Barry, Williamstown, Waterford. So we didn't even have a house number. So you can tell from that I was actually out in the country. It was a back country road. It was kind of it was the back road to Dunmore East out of Waterford. And, we lived in a bungalow on probably about, I'm going to say, a fifth of an acre, so a reasonably big garden. And had a great childhood. I've one sister, she lives in the US now, actually. She's been there for, God, more than 20 years. So she lives in New Jersey, and yeah, had a great upbringing. And obviously, I was doing magic and hypnosis from a very young age, and my parents were always very supportive of that.
And at what point then did you go to school in Waterford and grow up in Waterford, or at what point did you come to Dublin?
Yeah, so I went to school initially in Water Park Primary School. Then that closed down, so I went to Mount Sion, which is an inner city school, and that was a difficult transition for me because Water Park was a private primary school, and then I went into literally an inner city Waterford school where I was seen as a bit of an outsider, a bit of an outcast. So I was quite bullied throughout school, and even in secondary school. I wasn't bullied badly, but I was bullied enough that I didn't really like secondary school. So I went to Mount Sion Secondary School, kind of kept myself to myself, had a couple of friends in there who I'm still friends with now, like Keane Foley, who's also my brother-in-law, and David Burke, who actually the first time I ever hypnotized somebody was him in our Irish class. I hypnotized him to be a chicken. He got detention. And then he asked to see the hypnosis pamphlet that I'd learned hypnosis from. It was called Practical Hypnotism. So I gave him a loan of the pamphlet. Never saw the pamphlet ever again, but now he's a professional hypnotist, a hypnotherapist in Waterford. That's what he does for a living. So
Wow.
that one day in Irish class where I hypnotized him changed the outcome of his life, and he's now a hypnotherapist, and we're still great friends. So I went from there to Galway University because my parents were always saying that magic is great as a hobby, but you're going to college, which was the right advice at the time because, being a full-time entertainer, whether it's a magician or a comedian or a singer, like it's a difficult path and a difficult road. And, the chances of making it a successful living out of it, are quite slim. So my parents, rightly so, said, you're going to college. So at the time, our career advisor in Mount Sion, he did one of those aptitude tests on me. Seamus Barry is his name. He might end up listening to this, so I've nothing but love for Seamus. But he said to me, Keith, your aptitude test came back, and my advice to you is pick anything that you want in college except science, because you're just not great at science. So because he said that, I decided, okay, I'm going to do science in college. So that's what I did. So because I had no real interest in doing anything per se in college, I just always wanted to be an entertainer, whether it be a magician or a mentalist or whatever. So anyway, I went to Galway University for 4 years. It was UCG at the time, which is obviously NUIG now. Had an absolute blast up there, made lots of great friends, and I graduated after 4 years with the top BSc that ever came out of Galway University and the top marks that ever came out of there. So yeah, Seamus was wrong. So there you go. And then I became a cosmetic scientist. I became a cosmetic scientist then. So I actually used to invent. Yeah, I used to invent women's makeup. That was my job for Oriflame, which is a Swedish cosmetics company. And yeah, look, I was doing magic part time all of the time when this was going on. So ultimately, after 2.5 years of being a cosmetic scientist, I decided to jump ship and be a full time entertainer, and that's 20 years ago now.
So you must have had great confidence in your, as you were growing up as well, because to be an entertainer, you have to, be able to project and to be able to stand in full of a full room of thousands of people. And do you ever get nervous?
Yeah, I still get nervous. I think confidence comes from experience, really. I remember my first ever show. I was 13 years of age. It was for I can't remember exactly who it was for. It could have been Hasbro or somewhere like that, but one of the big companies there down in Waterford, and they hired me to do a kids party up in the Ordry, as we used to call it, which is the juries in Waterford. It no longer exists, but ultimately, I remember walking on stage and my hands started to uncontrollably shake, which is not good for a magician, of course. And I had that for a couple of years. I had those nerves for a few years, but then the more shows that I did and the more confidence that I slowly started to gain, that I started to learn how to take control of those nerves. So yeah, I still get nervous now before every performance, but obviously I know now how to not only control that, but how to flip those nerves into, confident energy. And, I think that's what most entertainers learn how to do over time, but it does take time. And, for me now, obviously I am, I suppose a confident individual in the round, but you still get nervous. And I think the day you stop getting nervous is the day that you should quit, because if you're not getting nervous, it means I believe you don't really care about what you're doing. And we have to always
Yeah.
care, you know?
Yeah. Or like if like I often try and understand if I'm just really, really nervous or if I'm really, really excited. I can't really decide which one it is. It's kind of a mixture of the two sometimes.
Yeah, well, neurologically, not to bore you with it, but like there's a parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. And what happens is when we get nervous, the two of those systems kind of collide, if you like, inside your inside your body and inside your brain, and you have to learn how to take control of those. And that's why there is really very little difference between excitement and nervousness, because chemically they're very similar inside your mind. So what you have to learn how to do is take control of that. And ultimately, once you learn how to take control of that, you can flip that nervous energy into confidence and positivity,
I remember when I went to one of your first shows, it was in the Olympia, and I was actually terrified walking in. And you had photos of yourself all through the areas where you would be walking in. And I was
Yeah.
actually afraid if I looked too long at your poster, that you'd have some way of getting into my head and I'd arrive on your stage. And I was, I was so nervous. I was so afraid that I'd end up on the stage.
Yeah, you're not alone. So that's always a battle for me, insofar as people when they. So I meet people on the street all the time, and they say to me, I really enjoy your TV stuff, Keith, but I'm never going to one of your live shows because I'm too scared of landing on the
Yeah.
stage. So I had to figure out a way around that, especially with my last tour, which was called Insanity. So we left 500 meters of tinfoil outside the front door of every single theater around the country. And if people wanted to come to the show but didn't want to land on stage or participate, all they needed to do was make and wear a tinfoil hat on the way in. And we had a lot of fun with this, because literally thousands and thousands of people made and wore tinfoil hats along the Insanity tour. And of course, a lot of them thought it was a joke at the start, but very quickly they realized into the show that if you're not wearing a tinfoil hat, then you're free game for me to go for you and hack into your brain. But if you are wearing a tinfoil hat, you could just kick back, relax, and enjoy the show. So yeah, if you come to any of the shows in the future, just grab a tinfoil hat and wear it, and you'll be fine.
And do you find that the people that some of the people that wear the tinfoil hats are maybe the skeptics and just think, oh, he'll never be able to brain hack me ever? And then you do? Or
Yeah, I love this. I love skeptics. I encourage skeptics on the stage all of the time, because I think there's no better way for me to prove that I'm not using any stooges, I'm not using any camera tricks, than to have a skeptic on the stage. So I like that challenge aspect of it. And from that perspective, I get a lot of skeptics on the stage, and it works even better to my advantage, because when I get a skeptic on stage and they, I suppose, try and mess around with me, and then 5 minutes later they're fully hypnotized, or 5 minutes later I've hacked inside their brain and figured out the PIN number for their bank account, and you see that massive reaction from them on stage, the audience can really feel that that's real. So I actually love skeptics, and skeptics are easier than just normal people, believe it or not, because I know how skeptics think. That's what they don't understand. They think very linearly. They think in one dimension, whereas a normal human being thinks in 2 or 3 dimensions. But a skeptic just thinks, oh, he can't fool me. It's all a trick. There must be a flap on the envelope, or there must be a thing in his hand. And of course, there isn't. So when I eliminate those processes from the skeptic's mind, they have nowhere else to go except to the freak out moment,
And what's involved in becoming a magician or a mentalist? I mean, it's there's a lot of training in this, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I suppose people think that I'm joking when I say this answer, but it is a true answer, at least for me. 19 hours a day work for 20 years. That's the real answer. And I'm not joking. Like, I sleep very little. Even now with the whole thing that's going on with the coronavirus, I'm still working on average 18, 19 hours a day, because in my head, I have to move with the way the world is moving. And this is what I say to my clients that I work with. Like, you've got to figure out a way. There is no other way except the way the world is right now. We've got to become malleable. We've got to become flexible, and in order to do that, you've got to put in the extra effort, put in the extra hours. Like, if you look at, so I study the top performers in all kinds of different fields, just to see what they've all got in common. So if you look at Tiger Woods, somebody asked him not that long ago, what's the secret to your success? And he literally said, I'm the hardest working golfer in the profession. And no one can question that. And then the same with Will Smith. When Will Smith was just really a rapper, he wasn't even acting at the time. Somebody asked him, what's the secret to your success? And he said, when all the other rappers are in bed, I'm up practicing my rapping. That's what makes me different. And it's the same with me. So I go regularly 18, 19 hours a day. I don't even think about it because I enjoy it. So it's not like a chore to me. And then, of course, I'm not stupid. I have downtime. I watch Netflix. I spend time with my family. Like I always prioritize my wife and my kids to make sure I'm spending enough time with them. I have hobbies. I love fishing and stuff like that. But ultimately, aside from those, I'm very structured in the way I work. Now, look, anybody can become a magician. Anybody can do a trick. Through lockdown, I've been doing magic lessons on Facebook every Monday, Wednesday, or Friday for mainly for kids, just to give them something to do. And so anybody can learn a magic trick. But then to turn that into an art form, it requires presentation, injecting your own personality, and coming up with original and unique material and trying to stand out from the crowd. But then, of course, I'm a hypnotist as well. I'm a mentalist where I do the brain hacking stuff. And then, as I said, I do the mind coaching stuff as well, hence long hours,
Yeah. And were you a skeptic yourself when you started, getting interested in all of this? Or how would you describe your own mind? Because you said skeptics have linear minds. So what kind of mind do you have?
Yeah, look, I think a healthy level of skepticism is actually a really good thing. So I have a skeptical mind because I have a scientific mind. So
Okay.
as a scientist, I examine everything from a scientific background, but I would call myself an open-minded skeptic, meaning that I will examine something to the nth degree, but then I'm open to the possibility of whatever it is that I'm examining. So look, I've examined psychics for years. I've yet to see any psychic who even comes close to what I believe would be a real psychic. So, I've looked at that. Then I looked at I looked deep into the whole coronavirus thing. I looked at some of the conspiracy videos out there. I looked at some videos that look, on the outset, look really scientific. But then when you look at the people who are behind them, then they're not really scientific at all because they're the same conspiracy theorists who believe any conspiracy theory. People are sending me videos of David Icke and people like that. These people are, they're not scientists, and I think we have to take what they say with a pinch of salt, truly. But yeah, I'm an open-minded skeptic, and as a scientist, I examine everything from a scientific perspective first, and then as a mentalist and hypnotist secondary.
So you really study people as well. Like you probably know how everybody in your circle, your family and friends tick. I'd say that's a big thing
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, I mean, look, I consider myself a student of human behavior. So, again, I've studied the works of, like Paul Ekman. So Paul Ekman would be probably the number one facial recognition expert in the world. So we have about, 43 different facial expressions that we can make. And, I've learned to study those. So by studying those, you can learn what's going on inside somebody's brain without them actually having to say anything. And again, neurolinguistic programming, NLP, if you educate yourself in that, you can again know a huge amount about what somebody's thinking without them having to say a single word because you're studying them. And so, yeah, I mean, look, the one thing I would say is I'm not on all the time, insofar as I'm not always analyzing people. I'm not always trying to get inside their head because it's exhausting. So for me, I have to switch that part of my brain on. And other than that, when I'm with my friends, look, I'm just a normal guy. I go for a couple of beers with, I was never one of the lads really. So, I can't even say go for a beer with one of the lads. I'd go for beers with my wife and our collective friends. I just chill out and hang out, and I don't perform. I don't do any magic. I don't do any mentalism. I just hang out and talk nonsense, really,
And what's the most dangerous stunt you've ever done? I remember reading once that you froze yourself in a tub of ice for 47 minutes and then you became very ill after that. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, look, I've had a number of close calls with death, I suppose. I mean, probably the most dangerous one, weirdly, is one that, although it's fun to watch, I don't know if people really realize the danger that I was in. So in 2006, on my CBS special in the States, Keith Barry Extraordinary, I was driving down a canyon road in LA, blindfolded. It's up on YouTube. People can see it up on my YouTube channel, which is Keith Barry Official on YouTube. But ultimately, I was driving down a canyon road doing about 70 miles an hour, completely blindfolded, with Nicole Scherzinger in the passenger seat screaming her head off. And but I got way too close to the cliff's edge one time. So literally, if one wheel went off the cliff's edge, that was it. We were done. It was curtains. So that was probably the most dangerous one. But look, yeah, I've had many injuries over the years. The one you mentioned with the ice, yeah, I froze myself for, I think it was 47 minutes in a ton of ice, and then look, basically, I got really sick for 3 weeks afterwards, like really, really sick, and like I won't get into detail because it's too crude. But after 3 weeks, I went to the doctor. I was too nervous really to go to the doctor, and then I had to go to the doctor, and I went to the doctor, told him what I'd done. Of course, my doctor always looks at me weirdly when I tell him the stuff that I do. And then they did the blood tests, and luckily that year, on Christmas Eve, actually, I got the blood tests back, and they came back all clear. So the theory of my doctor is that my kidneys had shut down for the 3 weeks, but just slowly recuperated. Slowly recuperated over the 3 weeks, back until they were fine. But look, even with the lockdown, I'm massively affected by the fact, and I can only imagine what other people are like, that I can't get to a physio. I'm out in the sports surgery clinic literally every couple of weeks because I've got so many different injuries. Like I've got a bad rib injury that's been ongoing now for about 2 years. And that was from the stunt that I did with RTE on the New Year's Eve special, where I was doing an escape underwater and I ripped cartilage off my rib cage. But I didn't really talk about it in the press or anything like that. These are just injuries that I get and I just put up with, and then I try to heal them over time. But like I could do with getting to my physio now pretty soon.
And are you staying fit? Are you kind of keeping a certain fitness routine at home each day?
Yeah, so before the lockdown happened, I bought one of those little fitness trampolines. So I started to take up trampolining in the front room, and then I've just got a couple of little bits and bobs around the house. Like I've got a kettlebell that I bought, a couple of other things. So yeah, like I do what's called a 1,000 rep workout. So that it is what it says on the tin. It's 10 exercises. You do 10 reps of every exercise times 10. So that's 1,000 reps. So I've been doing that a bit, but I'm normally quite disciplined with this stuff, but actually weirdly enough, I'm finding myself so busy that I'm missing exercise. So it's the opposite, I suppose, of what maybe many people out there are feeling. So a lot of people are feeling like that they're perhaps lethargic and bored and have lots of time on their hands. So right now I'm actually so busy just figuring stuff out that I've let it go a little bit. So I need to get back into the rhythm of it and become a bit more self-disciplined, because normally I go into a personal trainer. So I think when you get kicked out of that kilter or that pattern, it takes a while to form a new pattern in order to get into.
Yeah, and you probably need to clear your own mind to kind of think of new material and just to spend the time to clear your mind to study and to research and all the things that I imagine you need to do to create new material.
Yeah. Like I'm always reading. I mean, so I read 5 books at a time, which sounds a bit mental, but it's just like literally reading a couple of pages of each book per day. And but my time has really been spent putting together Zoom entertainment shows that I can perform now from like a studio that I've kind of set up in the house. So I bought ring lights and I bought all the tech equipment to allow me to do Zoom mentalism shows and Zoom keynotes, because a lot of conferences, I believe, later this year will still go ahead, but they'll go ahead virtually. And I've got to be in a position to be able to pitch myself for those conferences, because a massive part of my work is performing corporate entertainment and giving keynotes at these conferences. So I've spent the time again writing and figuring that out so that I can do that.
Mm-hmm. And how do you relax? Like, what is your morning ritual?
Yeah, so I generally, I kind of vary it day to day, but generally speaking, I'll do my Wim Hof breathing technique. So Wim Hof is otherwise known as the Iceman, and ultimately he's got a breathing technique that can help set your body alkaline against disease, and it's just really good for your mind. So I do my Wim Hof
Yeah.
breathing. That takes about 10 minutes, and then I get into the shower, and I have a freezing cold shower. Like I'm talking freezing, not lukewarm, not a bit cold, like freezing cold. And then I'll have a smoothie of some kind, and then I'll just jump on the email straight away, get all the social media stuff done and out of the way, all my posts done, and then it varies day to day. Some days I'll do tons and tons of research. Other days, like right now as I talk to you, I'm literally surrounded by lights that I bought online, and in order to film some stuff, and I've got props all over my desk because I'm just rehearsing some new mentalism routines. But the consistent things that I do are the Wim Hof breathing technique and some stretching as well, because I've got impingements under my shoulders, I've got arthritis in my ankle, I've got the rib injury, so I've got so many injuries. I've got to make sure I stretch every day, and then once the world gets back to hopefully the new place, whatever it is that it will be, fishing is my relaxation. That's what I love, and that's what I missed most. And I suppose look, I've followed the rules very stringently. In other words, my kids haven't had any contact with other kids for a long time now, even before the lockdown happened. I can't remember the last time I went beyond a couple of kilometers from the house, but I do feel a little bit, I suppose, down on myself insofar as, with fishing, it's a very solitary thing for me. So I can just, the fishing spots that I want to go to are about 120 kilometers from my house. But ultimately, I could get in a car, drive 120 kilometers, stand on a rock where, trust me, I've been fishing the same spots for 10 years, 15 years. I know there's not going to be another soul. Stand there, fish for 6 hours, get in the car, and drive straight back up. But obviously, I can't do that at the moment. So that's the one thing I wish I could do.
Yeah, it's so great and peaceful. Great for clearing the mind.
Yeah, I mean, people ask me what I think about when I'm fishing. I think of nothing except where's the fish and can I catch a fish? That's it. That's all I think of.
And how does social media fit into your life, Keith?
Well, it's a huge part of our lives. It always was, and now it's more of a part of my life because of what's been going on. So, yeah, I'm on all the platforms, LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok is the latest one I've had to add to the list, Instagram, obviously. So it takes up a huge amount of time, and try to create content for all those different platforms because they're all very different than each other. TikTok is a weird one for me because obviously it's the place really for the younger generation. And I'm posting stuff up there. And weirdly, one of my videos just went viral a couple of weeks back. It hit 3.5 million views there. And yeah, it's all a bit foreign to me because if I'm being brutally honest, which I always think you should be on podcasts such as this, I don't like any of it. I don't enjoy it, not one bit. For me, it's a means to an end because I am a public figure. I need people to know, how they can contact me about performance coaching, how they can come to my shows, where my shows are. But I just, it's not something I enjoy doing. So every day I put in a couple of hours every day responding to people, putting up content and all the rest of it, but it's not something that I have a passion for.
Yeah, it can, and it can infringe on your own private life as well. So that's, I often get that from a lot of people that I chat with, that they find it has pluses and minuses, positives and negatives in their lives. Social media can either.
Well, I think it's more of, I think it's more of a negative than a positive. And I think the biggest issue is that now that everybody's so used to Zoom calling each other, FaceTiming each other, and all the rest of it, I think we're going to come out of this pandemic now way more addicted to social media and phones than ever before. And I think people won't be able to leave phones down out of their hands at all. And I know people like to think that we're all going to come out of this a better race and with a better sense of the world. I'm not so sure about that either. You look at what happened, poor Caroline Flack there earlier this year, and then people came out and said, be kind, and everybody kind of jumped on the be kind bandwagon. But within 2 days, I noticed, because I studied this, like all the patterns went back to the same. They found somebody else to pounce on, and everybody just started pouncing on
I
other
agree.
people. So now that
Hmm.
everybody's going, oh, the world's going to be a better place, and we're all going to, really know what's important in our lives, friends and family. Well, for me, I already knew that. I didn't learn anything. I always prioritized friends and family ahead of everything else. I was always into nature. I was always into gardening. So we grown our own vegetables in the back garden here, but I've done that for years. And now this is all just on a personal level. But I would like to think that people, even listen to this podcast, if you're going to say you're going to come out a better person, well, then stop and think about, what are you actually going to do differently? Like, what are you really going to do differently? And how are you going to behave differently in a more positive way? Because really, our intent in life should all be the same. We talk about intentions a lot, but ultimately our intent should be to engage in actions that positively benefit not just us, but also the people around us and that we're close to. And I think if people just got their intentions correct and they really married their actions to their intentions, then that's how we could come out of this a better race and a better nation. But saying it and doing it are two separate things.
That's true. And the lockdown has just brought out the fear in everyone. And of course, you more than anyone knows, fear can be very ugly with certain people, and it can completely overtake their lives. And they're like watching the news, and they're taking all of this negativity in, and they don't know what to do with it, and it's eating them up, and it's controlling their thoughts and their mind and how they approach everything during the lockdown.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, problem number one, everybody now is a hypochondriac. Like, everybody. So, everybody's like worried about the packages coming in, as I mentioned before. Everybody's worried about, washing their hands consistently. And we have to do these things. So therefore, is it good now to be a hypochondriac? Maybe it is. Um, but is it sustainable to be a consistent type? Like, what's going to happen when the restaurants open back up? Are we now going to have to wipe our own knives and forks down because we're frightened of perhaps somebody in the kitchen who's washed the knives and forks or
Exactly.
taken them out of the dishwasher? Are we going to be wiping those down? If I pass somebody on the way to the bathroom, am I going to be freaking out and hold my breath? And these are real concerns for people. And I do know that some people, quite a lot of people, this stuff gets, again, into their mindset. And
Yeah.
as you mentioned, that negativity can really get people down. And there's no real easy way around that, except, with my own clients, I teach them about their subconscious mind and the fact that their subconscious mind regulates their autonomic nervous system, which is your heart rate, your blood flow, your breathing, your respiratory system, your temperature. All these different things are regulated by your subconscious mind. So therefore, people need to learn how to take control of their subconscious mind. And the way I do that is using hypnosis with my clients. But ultimately, really all hypnosis is actually self-hypnosis. So if there's a piece of advice I could give people who are listening today, it's literally, because all of our anxieties and all of our stresses and all these different things are deeply embedded on a subconscious level. So ultimately, you need to owe to yourself to learn about the subconscious mind, learn everything that you can about neuroplasticity and the fact that your brain is malleable. And depending on the people that you're surrounding yourself by and the information that you absorb, you can change your brain structure. And therefore, if you could do that on a subconscious level, then you can take actions that will help you reprogram your subconscious mind. And those actions can be, for example, meditation is fantastic. I mentioned for me, it's hypnosis or self-hypnosis in some cases, where people can learn how to reprogram their subconscious minds. And I think, if people really start to do that, then ultimately they will find that their anxieties lessen and that they can actually deal with that stress a lot better.
I wanted to ask you that very thing. I wanted to ask you,
Mm.
how important is visualization with your clients? Do you advise them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the number one key thing
Hmm.
that everybody can do. So for me, every single step along my journey, I have visualized the outcome of whatever goals or dreams that I've had. And I visualize those goals or dreams consistently every single day, whatever strategy that I have or whatever target that I have at any given moment in time. So, that's how I ended up headlining in Las Vegas, because I visualized it every single day of my life. That's how I ended up doing TV shows in America. That's how I ended up
Wow.
touring Australia. That's how I ended up having a TV show again here in Ireland on RTE. It's because I sit down, I write down my goals, my targets, and then I close my eyes every day. Generally now I do it when I'm doing my Wim Hof breathing technique in that 10 minutes. And when I'm doing that, I then really visualize in bright, vivid, colorful detail my targets and my goals. And I literally make that my new reality. And then I end up spending, as I mentioned to you before, 15 to 19 hours a day making that visualization my actual new reality. In other words, taking positive actions in order to make that happen. And with all of my clients, golfers, rugby players, visualization is something that I insist that they do. It's not really an option. That it's part of my program, if you like. And there was a famous basketball experiment many years ago now, but people can find this stuff online. There is the research is out there that's free online. But ultimately, there's a basketball test that they did years ago where they took two basketball teams of equal ability, and one basketball team was told just to sit down and visualize themselves taking penalty shots for 30 days. And then the other basketball team actually trained as per normal and practiced their penalty shots for 30 days. So in other words, one set of players only visualized themselves doing it. And then at the end of the 30 days, there was only a 1% difference in their performance after the 30 days. So in other words, the people who visualized it were equally as good as the players who had actually physically been performing the action, because our minds, our subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between visualize something and actually performing the action. So visual and mental rehearsal is as important, are equally as important as physically taking the action.
And can I ask you a completely separate question? Do you believe in the paranormal at all?
I've yet to see scientifically anything at all that I would constitute as paranormal, and I mean that from the perspective of I've yet to see anything in real life, and I've yet to see anything even on TV. I think the only real spooky things that happened around me were the one time I was writing a show called The Dark Side. And The Dark Side was a show that I wrote mainly around Aleister Crowley, who was known as the kind of the wickedest man that ever lived. He was an occultist, and he had a cult actually at the time. And he actually got thrown out of Italy. Mussolini threw him out of Italy because Aleister Crowley had one of his followers drink the blood of a dead cat. And ultimately that follower died. So Mussolini threw Aleister Crowley out of Italy. So anyway, this whole show was based around Aleister Crowley. And I was messing around with Ouija boards here at the house. And I was up late one night and I was mucking around with a Ouija board. And, I'd been in a room for maybe 2 hours in our front living room. And I hadn't left even to go to the bathroom or anything. And I was messing around with this Ouija board. And the next minute, one of the kids' toys, so it was a little electronic teddy kind of thing, it turned itself on. It turned itself on and just walked across the living room floor. So that kind of freaked me out for half a minute. And then I was in my office, which I'm in now, another night. And it was a cold winter night, so I had a blow heater on. And I remember specifically, I really specifically remember, turning the blow heater off. Because it was a small blow heater, and it'd be the type of thing that could be, it could cause a fire if it was left on all night. So I made sure I turned it off, went to bed, came back downstairs the next morning, came into the office, and the heat that came out of the office was unreal. And I looked at this little plug-in heater, and there was a red light on it, which means that it was on. And I was like, God, I remember turning that off. But as soon as I looked at it, I saw the red light. It actually, no buttons moved or anything, but the red light just clicked off, meaning the heater turned itself off. So, so they were the two weird moments. But again, I'm such a, I suppose, really behind it all, a scientist and skeptic, that I just put both of those down to a weird coincidence. And I probably had left, even though I would swear to you in a court of law that I turned the heater off the night before, I probably had just left the heater on. I don't know, But I've yet to see anything that I think is in any way paranormal.
And psychics, what's your view on them?
Well, look, that'd be a whole other podcast, but as a broad stroke, there's a couple of different types of psychics. There are obviously fake and phony psychics who are literally tricking people into taking their money and pretending to contact their dead loved ones or predicting the future or whatever it is. And, I just think that's a terrible way to behave, and literally they're just tricking you out of your hard-earned money. And then there is a smaller minority, and it is just a small percentage of them, which are what we call shut-eye psychics. So a shut-eye psychic is somebody who actually believes that they're psychic. So in some ways, they're almost more dangerous than the fake ones, because here's your major issue. A lot of these psychics actually give psychic health advice. So they could advise you to not go to the doctor because that you're healed of a certain disease, even as far as cancer and stuff like that. And to be taking medical advice from these so-called psychics can be massively detrimental to your health. But look, I've examined literally thousands of psychics over the years. Many years ago now, I had a reward out for psychics that if anybody could prove to me under test conditions that they were psychic, I'd give them 10,000 euros, and not one psychic would take the test. So, the evidence is right there for you. I remember being at a psychic actually in the Helix. I went to a psychic in the Helix to watch him, and then at halftime, it was very obvious to me how he was doing what he was doing, but the audience was enthralled by this guy. And ultimately at halftime, a bunch of lovely ladies came up to me and they said, "What do you think, Keith? What do you think?" And I said, "Well, look, you're here to have a good night. I'm a skeptic, so you're better off not asking me what I think." But they kept pushing me. And I said, "Listen, I don't want to ruin your night." And then they kept pushing me. I said, "Okay." And then I gave one of them a psychic reading, and she was bawling her eyes out. But the whole way through the psychic reading, I was saying to her, "Everything that I'm saying to you right now is fake. I am not a psychic." So then the six of them, they left the show at halftime because they realized they'd been conned by the guy on stage. They realized that he was just being insincere and being a fake. But here's the thing. I know that people who are going to believe in psychics, even listening to this, even by me saying that I believe they're all fake, it doesn't matter. They're going to believe anyway. So they're going to believe what they want to believe,
But how do you get around when, like, I've been to a couple and some have been like astonishing, but maybe, I was an easy target. I don't know. But some have really been able to tell me things that happened in 10 years time, 15 years time that actually happened. Was that, in your opinion, just a really good guess, or what do you think?
Well, there's a whole lot going on. So, really it's like, as I said, it's like a can of worms, but ultimately there's a whole bunch of different techniques that they're using. So hot reading, cold reading, rainbow reading, all these different things. All these different things combined to make it look like they're psychic. But ultimately, their job. So, I mean, the psychic that you went to, was it one-on-one or was it as part of a group?
One-on-one.
Yeah. So their job at the end of an hour of you being with them is to package that hour in such a way that when you leave their office, that you'll believe that they just told you about your dead granny Sally Ann and the goldfish that you had when you were 5 years of age called Tom. And that will be your memory of that, because they'll embed that memory in much the way a hypnotist can implant, or a mentalist can implant and extract thoughts inside somebody's mind. Now, you'll remember that, and you'll go to your friends, go, "Oh my God, they told me about my granny Sally Ann. Oh my God, I freaked out. And they also told me about my great aunt Margaret. Oh, I tell you, this is the best psychic ever." And that will be what you'll say to your friends, right? Now, that sentence took me 30 seconds to say. What happened for the other 59 minutes and 30 seconds? What happened? You won't remember any of it. You remember none of it. And what you don't remember is that they've actually extracted a lot of that information from you. You've actually said it, and they'll make you misremember that they've said it to you. And then they'll make estimated predictions. I actually have a book right behind me here. It's called, hang on, let me grab it.
Okay.
See, can I see it there? Oh,
Mm.
I reorganized my office a few days ago, and now, of course, I don't know where any of my books are because I've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books. Oh, actually, it's out my other. I have another office out my back garden, a log cabin which I got built over Christmas. So
I've seen
it's
that
at,
on Instagram.
yeah, it's actually out there. But anyway, it's called Gail Sheehy Passages, and it's a big, thick book about the psychology of the human mind, and depending on what decade our age is in, that you can tell a whole lot about somebody depending on their age. So these psychics use all of that information. They use all of it to, again, package a 1 hour performance, which is really what it is, down into a 1 minute synopsis that is all you'll remember when you come out of there. And that's what the good ones do.
Wow. It's unbelievable, because there's people, especially in Ireland, you've got a lot of mystics and super talented psychics and all that, they've given a lot of people a lot of hope and comfort. So it's an interesting way of looking at it for sure.
Well, you can look at it that they give people hope and comfort, or you can look at it from the perspective that I see it as, that they are telling you an untruth. And not only that, they're charging you for it. And not only that, they're interfering with the natural grieving process that we all
True.
need to go through in order to help us get over the death of a loved one. So to give people false hope, I think is, it's being a scam artist. And again, I've also heard stories of people giving over not just 50 quid for a psychic reading, but literally signing over their houses to these so-called psychics. Like there's a very well-known name. I'm not going to name him now. But he's been investigated for people handing over their mortgages to him, and he's a person. He's an Irish person, so I would say don't believe whatever you want to believe. I'm not here to encroach on people's belief systems. However, I wouldn't just say that they're giving people hope and comfort, because you can get that from a therapist, and you don't need to get that from a psychic.
That's true. And tell me, where has been your number one most favorite place to perform in the world?
Well, look, it was a dream of mine always to perform in Las Vegas. So that will always remain very special in my heart. So that was in Planet Hollywood, where I headlined there, and that's a dream for anybody to come true. But besides there, my two favorite places to perform are 100% the Olympia in Dublin. I couldn't believe when MCD said this to me, but I'm the number one selling artist of all time in the history of the Olympia. So it's amazing. It's amazing to be that person. And like, I don't say that to boast in any way. I just say that because it was amazing to me when they said that to me. And I pinch myself as a guy from Waterford who's just managed to do that. And then the other place would be the INEC in Killarney, because just when you have 2,000 people, which is the biggest audience really that I play to, in a room, the energy of that audience is phenomenal. So definitely I love playing the Olympia and the INEC the best.
And do you automatically know when you meet somebody, like in the first few seconds of meeting somebody, if you can work with them or not? In terms of in one of your acts? Yeah, now I can. Yeah. It's rare that I can't work with people, unless just, here's the thing, it sounds mean, but really it's people below average IQ that are difficult to work with, because they don't understand my instructions. They don't understand what's going on, and really drunk people, obviously, as well. So they're the difficult ones. I had a skeptic a drunk skeptic in Arklow during this tour, and she kept shouting up from the audience. And look, I can put hecklers down pretty quick. So, but she wasn't really being a heckler; she was just being disruptive. So I pulled her up on stage, and within 3 minutes, I had her dealt with and gone back into the audience. The audience was on my side. But yeah, I can sense now, without people saying anything, who I can work with and who I can't work with. So I really now only pick people that I know are going to add to the performance. Who's been your most favorite celebrity to work with?
Morgan Freeman, I think, just because he's such an icon in the acting world. And my favorite movie of all time has been the Shawshank Redemption. And I worked on the Now You See Me movies, Now You See Me 1 and Now You See Me 2. And I was lucky enough to work with him on Now You See Me 2. And Woody Harrelson introduced me to Morgan Freeman and said to Morgan, he just said, Morgan, Keith came up with all the magic and mentalism for the movie, and you can read your mind. So Morgan Freeman's opening words to me were, okay, I challenge you to read my mind. So that was quite nerve-wracking, but quite exciting at the same time. And I'm actually looking at the photograph. I've got it up my wall here. People can see it. It's up on my Instagram page. But ultimately, I hacked into his brain. It took about 10 minutes now. It wasn't a short process, but I hacked into his brain. So it's like what you're saying about psychics. I got challenged by Morgan Freeman to read his mind. And within 10 minutes, I told him about a childhood friend of his called Boo Boo that he hadn't thought about. He hadn't even thought about Boo Boo in over 60 years. And I told him that the two of them used to go fishing together. And he literally lost his mind. He freaked out. And that would have been my favorite moment of all time from all the different celebrities that I've worked with. Just the fact that I knew I got one over on Morgan Freeman.
Is it correct that I've read somewhere that you can read people's pupils or how they dilate or move? It helps you kind of understand what they're thinking. Is that true?
Yeah, definitely. They say the eyes never lie, but by studying people's eye movements, then ultimately you can figure out what pattern they're thinking in. Because really, we only think in a couple of different modes. And we think visually, we think with our auditory sense, or we think kinesthetically. So there's three primary modes of thinking, and depending on where the eyes look, it can tell us what mode of thinking a person is in, and then we can change our language patterns to match their internal system. So really, a lot of that is based upon the works of neurolinguistic programming, NLP. So if people want to learn about how to read eye movements, a good place to start would be to take an NLP course and learn it that way.
And are you a super organized person at home? You have two offices now in your home. Are you very organized?
I tried to be. Like, I cleared my office 2 days ago. I made it spick and span. And as I sit here talking to you, it's destroyed with props and books and all kinds of things, because I end up doing these Zoom shows and the place ends up covered in props. And then I'm scrambling doing, interviews such as this. And then I got to juggle a lot of balls. So I try to be organized, and I'm getting better at it. But I would say, really, I'm a messy person deep down beneath. But in an overall context, I'm not too bad now, but it could be better. It could be better.
And how would you describe your own home? Is it kind of cozy? Are you a classic kind of cozy kind of person, or are you modern? How would you describe your own interior style?
I think it's kind of in between both. So pretty modern. We've got, I remember when I headlined in Vegas, at the exact time I headlined there, I walked into Michael Goddard's art gallery in Planet Hollywood. He actually has a gallery there, and he's a pretty famous artist over in the States. And I said, okay, I'm here in Vegas, I'm buying that painting. So we've got a couple of his paintings around the place. They're quite modern in style, and they're based around playing cards. So that's why, obviously it's relevant to what I do. And then other than that, I suppose pretty standard is the way I would describe it. White leather couches with a nice big, whatever it is, 55-inch flat screen TV, but pretty basic stuff. But very rustic though in other ways. I have a lot of furniture that's reclaimed wood, so I've got a huge long dining room table that would require like 6 men to lift it. Really? And then I've got a really unusual bench to go with that. So a real long bench on one side, and then 4 chairs to go around it. But even our coffee tables, all that stuff, it's all reclaimed wood. So it was from a company that doesn't exist anymore, actually, called Seaborn Chic. They were based down in Wicklow, and we got even our bed is reclaimed wood from down there. So. Wow. So yeah, we've got a lot of kind of rustic furniture, but then, as I said, some modern art pieces, I suppose,
So you spend a lot of relaxing downtime at home, as often as you can, you do?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, I travel like crazy. So for me, being home, I just love being home. Obviously, nobody wants to spend the amount of time we've all spent at home over the past couple of months, myself included. But I'm very comfortable in my own house, and I love home cooking like I do. So, I'd say 4 days a week, maybe even 5 days a week, I cook on the barbecue. outside. Even during the winter, I'll cook on the barbecue, and and then my wife, she does the kitchen cooking, and she likes it that way. She wants the kitchen to herself, and the barbecue is mine, so that works for us. Um, so so I love being home and just having home cooked meals, because when you're on the road as much as I am, both
Yeah.
here and abroad, you know, the diet. I have to tell you that the one thing that disappoints me greatly in Ireland is a lot, not all of it, but a lot of the hotel food is really poor. It's not good.
Yeah.
And I can't name the hotels because I work with the hotels, and it'd be
Mm-hmm.
unfair of me to name them. And to be
Mm-hmm.
honest, I don't even complain when I get it. I would like to complain, but because I'm performing in these venues, I can't have somebody who's coming to my show sitting 6 feet away seeing me complain about the food. But ultimately, some of the food is very bad. So I love eating at home, and I love eating, like, smoke rack of lamb off the barbecue, or I'll smoke a chicken on the barbecue, or some steaks, or when I can get out fishing, my wife will cook a salmon that I catch, or sea bass, or sea trout. Um, so yeah, I love being home, and then I just love literally kicking out on the couch and watching Netflix like everybody else.
Great. That's good. I can't imagine you like that, which is nice. Because I mean, every time I see you, you're opening up a new incredible show somewhere like Vegas or in the Olympia, all over the place. You just seem so busy, and I've been fascinated by your career. Who has inspired you the most in your career?
Um, I think really it's just been my dad, to be honest, because my dad was a performer back in the day. He used to do the tops of the town, as they were called, down in Waterford, and he was always the lead. So he was always, you uh, Joseph in the musicals. He was always Jesus in the musicals. So he was always the lead character, and he's a great singer. So I think I got the performance aspect from him, and probably a lot of my confidence from him. And we're great friends still now, and I go to him for a lot of advice. So I think he would be the one that would stick out the most.
And who have been people that you always looked up to in terms of mentalists or magicians? Was there anyone that you would have thought, God, I love their style. I like the way they've done that show.
Yeah, look, in my world, there's a lot of guys from history that I would look up to. So Chan Canasta was amazing, an amazing character in our world for many, many years. David Berglas, who I had over here as a guest on one of my TV shows a couple of years ago. He's an amazing mentalist from London. I think he's 90 now, but he had his own TV shows back in the day in the UK. But in the modern world, look, I think Dynamo is doing great things with magic. Quite
Mhm.
quite good friends with Dynamo, and he's doing his thing in the UK, and he's doing very well. Darren Brown will probably go down in history as one of the greatest mentalists of all time. So Darren is fantastic, and look, even David Blaine. David changed the course of magic when he came out with his first street magic special back in the 1990s, and he revolutionized the way magic was shot for television, and he's still going strong all of these years later. So I suppose they're the three that would stick out in my head, and then Penn and Teller obviously as well are amazing.
And what advice, Keith, would you give to your younger self?
um, Try not to be a workaholic, and and chill out a little bit more. I do find myself uh, uh, not highly stressed would be the wrong word, but like just too full on all of the time and trying to do too many things. So to chill out a bit more, and yeah, just take it a bit easier.
And where do you see yourself? This is the final question, Keith. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Uh, you know, I would have said, if you'd asked me this well, I'll give you two different answers. If you'd asked me this 6 months ago, I would have said in 5 years, I'd have a hit TV series in the US, whether that's on Netflix or US primetime network television, and touring America, because they are goals that I do have. But given the current environment that we're in, I'm in a little bit of an unknown myself, insofar as I'm finding it hard to visualize my own goals and dreams because they're changing daily, dependent on where we're at. But if the world opens back up again, to an extent that I could tour and do the television I want to do, it would be to, in 5 years' time, be on primetime television in America and touring America. Not to move there full time, but just to do that, probably 6 months of the year and then spend 6 months here.
Wow. And do you bring your family with you when you travel to America, or do you go alone?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We were in Miami last year, right in the hurricane season, weirdly enough. And then even when I shot You're Back in the Room, which you mentioned right at the top end of the podcast, when I shot You're Back in the Room for the US version, they came out with me, and they had a great time in the swimming pool all day long while I was stuck filming 14 hours a day. So I came back snow white and they all came back tanned. But yeah, they come with me, which is great.
Just a few quick fire questions, Keith. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Bath or shower?
Shower.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Socks or jocks?
Both.
Text or talk?
Oh, talk.
Stage or TV studio?
Stage.
Cat or dog?
Dog, for sure.
Red or white wine?
Red.
Taxi or walk?
Walk.
Magic or conspiracy theories?
Ooh, I love both, but magic first and foremost.
Audience or one-on-one?
Audience.
Eat in or take out?
Eat in.
And my final question is Kanye or Donald Trump?
Oh, neither. Can't stand either of them. Nah. Give me Pink any day of the week.
Keith, thank you so much for talking with me today, and I really wish you all the best. And if there's anyone I know that can get through the lockdown, it's you.
Yeah, thanks very much. And again, I would just say to people, look after your subconscious mind, learn about it, learn how to reprogram it, and, reach out to me through the website. Oh, very quickly. I almost forgot. Just on my website, if people go on to keithbarry.com and go into coaching, so there's a coaching section, and peak performance. If you just stick your email address in there, I'll send out a free ebook to you. And the ebook is about visualization and reprogramming the subconscious mind. And I was going to sell the ebook, and so there's a lot of good information in there. But because of the current situation, I'm sending that out for free. So I'll give you the link to it. But it is keithbarry.com, coaching and peak performance. Stick your email in there if you want a free ebook on how to reprogram the subconscious mind.
Excellent, Keith. That's amazing. Take care.